All right, shalom, shalom, Kwame Yashala, giving infinite honors and praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Harachak Wadash. Double honors to my teachers, the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who rule well and are worthy of their double honors. Peace and blessings to you, Akim, pushing out this truth across the four corners during these last seconds of time. Kwame Yashala, mighty, mighty shalom, and this lesson is entitled, Diet Means Lifestyle. Diet means lifestyle. Lord willing, this message be edifying. All right, and this is just backing up different brothers going into it in the spirit, ultimately maintaining spiritual work as well as physical work, so to speak. All right, maintaining your health. All right, the condition of your body here in this captivity. All right, it's highly important. All right. The word diet means lifestyle, okay? So your diet, the food you intake, all right, directly affect your lifestyle. And I just typed in here on Google in the chat, diet means lifestyle, and how does gut health affect your brain? All right, because your gut is likened unto your second brain, the things that you put into your body, all right, the things and the foods that you consume, all right, affect your way of thinking, your actions, okay? And it says here, diet is a cornerstone of lifestyle that deeply dictates your gut microbiome. Your gut affects your brain through the gut-brain axis, a bidirectional network linking the two. The scriptures tell us this: health and good estate of body are above all gold, and a strong body above infinite wealth. Health and good estate of body are above all gold, and a strong body above infinite wealth. Because if your body is strong, your mind is strong, all right? If you're in good health, all right, then you're in a better case of whether you have infinite riches. Because if you're not in good health, you're not going to be able to properly allocate those riches that you have, all right? And the scriptures even say that. It says, better is a poor man. Bear with me. This is Sirach 30:14. It says, better is the poor being sound and strong of constitution than a rich man that is afflicted in his body. Because that rich man that's afflicted in his body, all right, he's not able to allocate and spend his riches properly, all right? But better is the poor being sound and strong of constitution in his body, all right? Because at least with your body being sound, all right, that directly correlates to you having a sound mind, all right? If you're rich and you have all these riches, this wealth, all right, and you're afflicted, have diseases in your body, all right, then you're not going to be in a right state of mind to ultimately handle your riches, your possessions that you have, all right? So the scriptures ultimately tell us that bodily exercise profit not, but ultimately we ought to have a balance. You're not to be so focused on hitting the gym, all right, just completely just diving into being a health fanatic, but you're not even paying any attention or given to the spiritual things. This is 1 Timothy 4:8. It says, for bodily exercise profited little, but godliness is profitable unto all things, having promise of the life that now is and of that which is to come. All right. And that was Apostle Paul. All right. And he's a good example of that, because Apostle Paul had thorns in the flesh. All right. That he battled through. OK. And that's a testimony for us being here in this captivity. All right. What you got now, they have a pestilence that's an explosive bowel disease, explosive bowel pestilence that is being targeted in so-called healthy foods like cilantro, basil, okay, different vegetables and fruits. They're saying that those foods, fruits and vegetables are linked to this explosive bowel pestilence. All right. So scriptures say that we will have defiled bread. All right. But ultimately, you got to fight to keep your mind and your body on one accord, man. All right. This is the book of Ezekiel chapter 4, verse 13, and the Lord Yahweh said, even thus shall the children of Israel eat their defiled bread among the Gentiles, whither I will drive them. Right. And here it is. We are here in America, all right, eating that defiled bread, okay, having a pretty much look on the back of different products for harmful ingredients, for ingredients that cause the C, the big C, all right, also the big D, okay, these different diseases, all right, these foods are filled with harmful chemicals and ingredients that try to stop your body from pretty much being on one accord with your mind, all right, parasites in the food, GMOs, all right, chemicals being sprayed on them. But it shows you that the wicked is in power currently, man. All right, because this wickedness is pretty much spread throughout the earth. All right, it's like pretty much you go into the grocery store and you're like, what can I eat? All right, because things are polluted. All right, different chemicals are within them, so that ultimately leads you to wanna have a better diet or a better lifestyle. Okay, just seeing the foods and the ingredients that Esau Edom is putting in the foods today. All right, so let's go back to that example. It says the millions of microbes in your gut produce vital neurotransmitters like serotonin and communicate directly with your brain via the vagus nerve and immune system. Right, and there's different exercises that you could pretty much use to get your body out of that flight mode. It's called pretty much fight or flight, I believe, if I'm saying it correctly. All right, pretty much eases that vagus nerve. All right, puts you in a de-stressed mindset. You got things like grounding. All right, going out in the sun. Okay, saunas. All right. Those things reduce inflammation, all right, in your body, which harmful foods, they put inflammation into your body. And pretty much like it's going to say, toxins can leak into your bloodstream, which pretty much inflames your body, all right? It says the connection between what you eat, your gut health, and brain function operates through three core mechanisms. It says neurotransmitter production, an estimated 90% of the body's serotonin, which regulates mood, sleep, and happiness, is produced in the gut, right? So that the body's serotonin, like it says, which regulates mood, sleep, and happiness, is produced in the gut. So if you're eating food, processed food, all right, a lot of different fried foods, okay, foods with these different harmful oils on them, all right, that pretty much can affect your mood, can affect your sleep, all right, can affect your happiness, all right, because your gut is like your second brain. So you eat something, all right, and it could change your mood, all right, it could change your sleep patterns, all right. That's why we get into a habit of not eating after a certain time, all right, or only consuming liquids after a certain time, fasting, okay, intermittent fasting, all right, dry fasting and things like that. All those things ultimately help you out to reduce the inflammation in your body that comes with eating those different types of food. But the thing is too to slack on eating those different types of food, man. All right, that defiled bread, those different meats, okay? Just like that the experiment that was done in the book of Daniel with pulse, all right, where you had pretty much. Let's get it real quick. And I wanted to get this other one that came to mind too. Bear with me. See where I'm gonna start at. I'll start at one and I'll read down. In the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, which part of the vessels of the house of God our power, which he carried into the land of Shinar to the house of his power, and he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his power. And the king spake unto Aspenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel, and of the king's seed, and of the princes, children in whom was no blemish, but well favored and skillful in all wisdom and cunning and knowledge and understanding science, which science goes into knowledge. All right. And he brought them forth ultimately to perform an experiment where you had those that for about 10 days, it's going to go into 10 days. All right. A portion of them ate the king's meat. All right. And a portion ate pulse, which goes into vegetables. It says, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. And the king appointed them a daily provision of the king's meat and of the wine which he drank, so nourishing them 3 years, that at the end thereof they might stand before the king. Now among these were of the children of Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, all right, which goes into pretty much Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, all right. It says, unto whom the prince of the eunuchs gave names, for he gave unto Daniel the name of Belshazzar, and to Hananiah of Shadrach, and to Mishael of Meshach, and to Azariah of Abednego, all right. And that was their pretty much going into the Babylonian names. So it says, but Daniel proposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with a portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. Now God our power had brought Daniel into favor and tender love with the prince of the eunuchs. And the prince of the eunuchs said unto Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who had appointed your meat and your drink. For why should he see your faces worse, liking than the children which are of your sort? Then shall ye make me endanger my head to the king. Then said Daniel to Melzar, whom the prince of the eunuchs had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, which again goes into Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. All right, so it says, prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat and water to drink. So this was an experiment, pretty much. Then let our countenances be looked upon before thee, and the countenances of the children that eat of the portion of the king's meat, and as thou seest, deal with thy servants. So he consented to them in this matter and proved them 10 days. So it was an experiment that was taking place over 10 days. And watch the results. It says, and at the end of 10 days, their countenances appeared fairer and fatter in flesh than all the children which did eat the portion of the king's meat. And I want to get that word pulse. So it says, thus Melzar took away the portion of their meat and the wine that they should drink, and gave them pulse, which goes into pretty much, I believe, vegetables. All right. And I'm going to read it in the NLT. This is the book of Daniel, chapter 1. And I'll start at verse 10. But he responded, I am afraid of my lord the king, who has ordered that you eat this food and wine. If you become pale and thin compared to the other youths your age, I am afraid the king will have me beheaded. Daniel spoke with the attendant who had been appointed by the chief of staff to look after Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Please test us for 10 days on a diet of vegetables and water, Daniel said, which goes into pulse, vegetables. It says, at the end of the 10 days, see how we look compared to the other young men who are eating the king's food. Then make your decision in light of what you see. It says, the attendant agreed to Daniel's suggestion and tested them for 10 days. At the end of the 10 days, Daniel and his 3 friends looked healthier and better nourished than the young men who had been eating the food assigned by the king. So after that, the attendant fed them only vegetables instead of the food and wine provided for the others. You see, and that's what that word post goes into. All right, and that was an example of our forefathers ultimately, all right, who had that strict diet, all right, and nourished them, okay? Now, eating meats is lawful, all right? Certain meats is lawful, all right, according to our law. But scriptures say some things are lawful but not expedient. This is 1 Corinthians 10 and 23. It says, all things are lawful for me, but all things are not expedient. All things are lawful for me, but all things edify not. So you may have some brothers that certain conditions in the flesh don't allow them to consume meat as much as others, all right? Does that mean that brother is better off than another brother? No. It says things are lawful for me, but all things are not expedient. So it might not be expedient for your body to consume certain amounts of meats. All right, it might be more expedient for you to go on a fast. All right, only eat vegetables. Pulse, like it's going into. All right, let's get that word pulse.
Strong's H2235.
Zero in, it says vegetables as sown, something sown, only in the plural. Kind of, still playing. It says vegetables as sown, something sown only in the plural. A vegetable as food, pulse, right? But remember, prayer with fasting, all right, working much righteousness. So you do all these things, but you gotta fast as well, man. You gotta fast off certain things, get things out your system, all right? Reboot your body, do certain detoxes, okay? Cleanses, okay? So it says, bear with me. This is Tobit 12:8. It says, prayer is good with fasting and alms and righteousness. A little with righteousness is better than much with unrighteousness. It is better to give up alms than to lay up gold. For alms doth deliver from death and shall purge away all sin. Those that exercise alms and righteousness shall be filled with life. But they that sin are enemies to their own life. And ultimately too, all right, scripture said it was neither herbs, but the word that healed us, man. So Yahweh through this word is going to heal us, man. Wisdom of Solomon 16:12, for it was neither herb nor mollifying plaster that restored them to health, but thy word, O Lord, which healeth all things. So it's the word ultimately that heals us, man. All right. You can go on fast after fast, strict diets, all right, only eating vegetables, fruits, juicing. But if you don't believe, all those things are for nothing. So it starts with that belief, that faith in Yahweh Shem Yahushua, that the Lord is ultimately going to heal you from whatever you're going through. All right. Heal your lifestyle, change your diet. Okay. Which the word diet goes in the lifestyle. All right. It says, does the word diet mean lifestyle? Yes, the word diet originally meant lifestyle or a way of life. While modern societies use diet to mean short-term food restriction or weight loss, its historical and linguistic roots tell a completely different story. The linguistic evolution, it says, the true history of the word demonstrates how its meaning shift from a holistic lifestyle concept to a narrow focus on food. Ancient Greek roots. The English word diet comes from the ancient Greek word dietia. Dieta literally means way of living or to lead one's life. Holistic practice, it says in ancient Greece, a person's dieta didn't just cover food. It encompassed their entire daily regimen, including physical exercise, sleep habits, mental well-being, and social interactions. That's your lifestyle, all right? And all those things, your physical exercise, sleep habits, mental well-being, that can be also tied to the foods that you eat, because we just went into how the gut and the brain, the gut is like the second brain, all right? So it's an all-around balance that you have to keep. All right, and it's a fight every day to keep that balance. So, Lord willing, all right, this message was edifying. I'm going to give infinite honors and praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Harachak, Wadash. Double honors to my teachers, the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to you, Akim, pushing out this truth across the four corners during these last sections of time. Kwam Yashala, Mighty Shalom.